back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I am a big believer in stuff that works and in sharing stuff that works. And, you know, we had this conversation with Richard Bandler on Tuesday, and John LaValle is with us. He is a master trainer of NLP and Design Human Engineering, DHE. He is the president of the Society for NLP, which is the group that licensed me way back, geez, I don't even know how many years ago, 15, 17, something like that, more than that. Well, actually, in fact, it was in the 80s when Louise and I both got first licensed as practitioners and then as a trainer. And I wanted to, and John, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. And I wanted to talk to you about NLP and Neuro-Linguistic Programming. First, for people who might not have heard our conversation with Richard 2 days ago, and it's probably a large chunk of our audience that didn't, can you recap for us just, you know, briefly what NLP is? What are people here at this seminar for? Why you know, where did it come from? All that kind of stuff.
Sure. NLP is about how the brain works with language.
Hang on just a second. It just said, Sean just said not hearing your mic, and it looks to me like your mic is sending. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, his mic should be sending to you, Sean. Okay, got it now.
2, 2,
Go ahead.
1?
Yeah. Start over again, John. My apologies.
That's okay. NLP is about, it's how the brain works, about how the brain works with language and behavior. And that's really what got me very interested in it. So people come to a seminar like this to learn a number of different things. One is how to have their communication a little bit more precise, learn how their brain works. We're not taught how our brain works, actually, right? And how does that connect to behavior? So I can give lots and lots of different examples of what would be useful in using NLP, because a lot of people, they think it's like, first of all, it's not a panacea. A lot of people think it's a panacea, it'll cure anything or fix anything, but that's not totally true. It will teach people how to use their brain, which is important, and how to use their language in order to project out what it is they're trying to communicate to people. A couple examples, for let's see. In business, for example, I like to do these things in business. In business, companies don't, for example, they don't communicate their mission very well or their objectives very well or even their strategies very well to their employees. As much as they might, wordsmith things and everything else like that, they may use words that don't necessarily work or work for everyone. Let me say that. Example. I'm going to give you an example. There's a list of words. I refer them in business as motivator words. In the language business, they're known as modal operators, and they're real simple. Here's a small list of them. Want, need, wish, like to, will, must, words like that. So all of these words don't work for everyone in the same way. So if I'm your boss, let's say I'm your boss, and I said to you, there's a report you give me, activity report from the previous week, let's say. And I said to you, I wish I could get my reports from you on Monday. I don't know what's the propensity of me getting that report on Monday based on that one word. So even for the people out there right now, if I said to you or said to them, think about this, and if I were your boss and I said to you, I wish I could get my reports from you on Monday, what are the chances of me getting my reports based on that word? On wish, just on wish. Most people would shrug their shoulders and say, oh, maybe you'll get it Wednesday. Next word. So I would like to have my reports on Monday. What's the propensity? What are the possibilities of me getting that report on Monday, on that one word? And the reason what I do is I ask people to, when they hear the word just as a test for themselves, what's the feeling they get to the word in terms of their motivation of doing that based on that word? Well, what if I said, I want my reports on Mondays? Does that up the chances of me getting my reports on Mondays? Okay.
Depends on whether I care about what you want.
Absolutely. You may not care what I wish.
Yeah.
You might not like, John, you'd like to have my reports, I'd like to have a raise. Right? I need my reports on Mondays. And you might think, well, John, if you need the reports, why don't you do the reports? Or I might say, I must have my reports on Mondays. And that might up the possibility of me getting my reports on Mondays. It's just one little list of words.
Sure. So if we're talking about precision of language, if I can, this is a political talk show.
Sure.
And without talking about our personal politics, what are some of the big mistakes that people make when they try to communicate in general? I know we're going to talk with your wife about communicating in couples and relationships and friends and all that kind of stuff, but just trying to communicate concepts, political concepts.
Yep. Well, again, it's going to depend on the language they use. So, if they say, first of all, one of the words they'll use a lot is we, instead of saying I, right? And so, if you think about it, if they said, well, I think we need to do this, or we think we need to do this, what happens in someone's brain, what kind of images do they make when in either of those two cases, for example? That's just a simple thing. Or we've done this, or even things like we have decided to do this, as opposed to a decision has been made to do this. Both of those might or might not reach the objective of what they want someone to understand. But each one of them is going to have a different impact on the receiver, let's say, on the receiver of that communication. I like to listen to politics. I like to listen to the speeches and things like that. I like to listen for how long are the sentences they're using, what kind of adjectives, how many different adverbs are they using. When I grew up, I was fascinated with grammar. I was one of those kids in school who liked diagramming sentences. I was probably the only one of two maybe in the whole class. But it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how language works and how it operates. And it kind of hung in there with me. So as far back as I can remember, I would listen to how people were saying what they would be saying. And I realized even more when I started learning about NLP, the technology, that you can make that even more precise if you really wanted to deliver the message. And it didn't have to be a hard message, but did it hit the point? Did it hit where you wanted it to hit, in the receiver's mind, basically. I look at political ads, and depending on who, it doesn't matter who it is actually, is there enough, I'm going to refer to the word meat in the message, or is it so ambiguous it leaves it up to the individual person to fill in the blanks?
One of the big pieces of NLP is that basically we experience the world through our senses.
That's right.
And we also construct our world, our internal world, with representations of those senses. In other words, we have feelings, we can also hallucinate feelings. We hear things, we can also hear our own voice or hear voices in our heads. We see things, we can also make pictures.
That's right.
We should do all those things, presumably, when trying to communicate with another person, whether it's communicating politics or communicating how great your product is?
Yeah, I would use all of the systems because one of the things is this. You don't know what the other person is doing in their brain. You may or may not know. Even if they're communicating with you, you may pick up some clues, let's say that. So in other words, if they're more visual than they are auditory, let's say, they're going to be kinesthetic. They're going to use feelings. And even smells and tastes sometimes. So you've heard people say that's a delicious idea, for example. Right? That's going to go right to the to the gustatory. So what we teach people to do, because especially like in advertising, use all of the systems, because you've got an open audience out there. You don't know what people's primary. I did some work in the stereo business with some friends of mine, and they wanted me to speak with their salesperson, up the sales, and they warned me ahead of time. They said, "Listen, he's a great guy. He knows a lot about stereos and all this stuff, but he's basically an engineer guy. He's not a salesperson." So I went up and spoke with the guy, and I noticed what customers were asking for, and he thought they want to hear. It's the stereo they want to hear, and that's not true. People would come in and they would say, that stereo looks like it sounds really good.
Ah, got it. We're hitting a break here, so we'll be right back. We're talking with John Valle. He's a master trainer of NLP and DHE and the president of the Society for NLP, purenlp.com.